Hi everyone. I hope all of you are doing well and I hope you were able to take a breather with a reading break. For this week, we will talk about the interactions of invasive animal species with native or endemic species. When invasive animal species enter areas of native and or endemic animal species, we expect interactions between them. We expect negative interactions because these are invasive species, right? The possible negative interactions are predation, competition for food, space, and other resources, parasitism, carriers of diseases, and hybridization. Predation is a biological interaction wherein one organism, the predator, kills and eats another organism, its prey. Cats are ubiquitous in many parts of the world. Who among you have cats? Of course, they are charismatic animals and people keep them as pets. For others, they keep cats because they want to get rid of rats. However, cats, whether pets, stray, or feral, are natural predators that unfortunately kills other wildlife. In this 2017 study in Australia, they estimate that about 44 million birds are killed annually by feral cats in highly modified landscapes, and 61 million birds are killed annually by pet cats, summing to 377 million birds killed per year by all cats. Feral cats include a significantly higher proportion of birds in their diet than do other main mammalian predators. Predation is not limited to birds in Australia. In this study of the diet of the feral cat across Australia and its territorial islands, they recorded 400 vertebrate species that feral cats feed on or kill, including 28 IUCN Red List species. They found evidence of continental scale prey switching from rabbits to small mammals, previously recorded only at the local scale. The consumption of arthropods, reptiles, rabbits, rodents, and medium-sized native mammals varied with different combinations of latitude, longitude, mean annual precipitation, temperature, and environmental productivity. The frequency of rodents and dasyurids in cats' diets increased as rabbit consumption decreased. In Guam, native species are the Mariana fruit bat and lizards such as the blue-tailed skink, mourning gecko, and they also consider the house gecko as native, probably due to its introduction a long time ago. In italics, you will see their introduced species such as deer, Philippine turtle dove, Polynesian rat, and house mouse, which were relatively inconsequential for the vertebrate food web. Brown tree snakes probably arrived on Guam shortly after World War II as an unintended consequence of the salvage of war materials from the New Guinea area. In 1945, carnivory was limited to kingfishers eating skinks and very large geckos occasionally eating smaller geckos. By 1965, the number of native species had not changed, but the addition of several predators, especially the shrew and the snake, had radically altered the number of predatory links within the vertebrate community. The shrew diminished the abundances of several terrestrial lizards, but the snake was not only eating the shrew, it was also reducing lizard predation by eating kingfishers. By 1995, native vertebrate prey species were so diminished that the food web was becoming comparatively top-heavy. Piscivores, nocturnal terrestrial insectivores, diurnal insectivore carnivores, nocturnal arboreal insectivore carnivores, and diurnal arboreal omnivores were entirely missing. In the Philippines, the cane toad is said to be a poor prey material due to its bufotoxin. And true enough, as what was reported in this research note, This adult Philippine pit viper in Ginobatan, Albay was seen immobilized and facing a half-dead adult cane toad in a water pit on August 2020. It was observed that the cane toad had bite marks and blood stains on its head part. Thus, it was presumed that the pit viper first attacked and mouthed the head of the toad, but failed in consuming it. After 2 minutes, both were confirmed dead, one from the bufotoxin and one from the venom. In this research note by Ravalo et al. 2019, they report the first case of the cane toad inside the gut of a cobra from Davao City. They obtained the dead cobra, which was killed by security guards apparently as a precautionary act in case of potential attack. Prior to killing, the guards described the snake as aggressive and did not show unusual behavior. The specimen was dissected at UP Mindanao, and they found the toad inside the stomach with indications that it had been eaten long before the snake died. This finding suggests that Samar cobra is possibly resistant to the bufotoxin and is therefore a possible predator of Rhinella marina in the Philippines. So remember the introduction of the cane toad in Palawan to control cobras? Aside from the irresponsibility of releasing the invasive alien species in the area, his plan might not even work. Competition for food, space, and other resources incites various behavioral responses such as aggression and avoidance that eventually leads to the displacement of native species. However, you will also see later that native species sometimes have a competitive advantage over invasive species. In this paper, the red-eared slider, Trachemis scripta, is an alien invasive species in many Mediterranean countries that is displacing the populations of the native endangered Spanish terrapins, Mauremys leprosa. This study hypothesized that chemosensory detection of competitor species might affect space use and habitat selection by freshwater turtles. They analyzed whether these two turtles recognized chemical cues from male and female conspecifics and heterospecifics in water. The invasive turtle did not avoid nor prefer water pools with chemical stimuli of the native terrapins, which might favor its expansion. In contrast, the native turtle preferred water with chemical stimuli of conspecifics and avoided water with chemical cues of the invasive turtle. This avoidance behavior may be one of the causes that contribute to the observed displacement of their populations by invasive red-eared sliders. Invasive animal species are space invaders. But have you heard about acoustic space invaders? In this study entitled Raising a Rocket, Invasive Species Compete Acoustically with Native Tree Frogs by Tennyson et al. In 2016, they investigated how sounds from the invasive Cuban tree frog, Osteopilus septentrionalis, affect the vocal behavior of Hyla cinerea and Hyla femoralis, which are native to the southeastern USA. Invasive species can be a source of noise since many produce acoustic signals to attract mates and defend territories. This study found evidence that acoustic competition with the novel sounds of an invasive species was driving behavioral changes in the native species. They found that masking noise by an invasive species differentially affected native species' vocal behavior, with the native species with more similar calls, in this case Hyla cinerea, similar in structure and timing to the Cuban tree frog calls, produced shorter duration calls and increased call amplitude, thereby modifying communication signals to minimize acoustic competition. Behavioral modifications would require energy expenditure, and therefore some native species resort to avoidance to conserve energy. As mentioned earlier, there are cases wherein native species are not outcompeted depending on a multitude of conditions. In this study, under laboratory conditions, cane-toed tadpoles exhibited reduced rates of growth and/or development when raised with the tadpoles of dicroglossid and dracophorid species that occur on Ishigaki Island, Japan. Results suggest that if similar suppressive effects occur in the field, competition within the larval phase may constitute a significant form of biotic resistance to the cane toad's colonization of Ishigaki Island. In Europe, compared to native rodent hosts, so you see there the Siberian chipmunk, Tamias sibiricus, not only harbors more diverse genotypes of bacteria responsible for Lyme disease, but also supports a richer tick fauna, consequentially transforming a popular pet into a particularly effective zoonotic agent. B. The red-eared slider is a vector of salmonellosis. C. The Canada geese, Branta canadensis, are potential vectors of Cryptosporidium, Campylobacter, and E. coli. D. The raccoon dog, Nycteriutes procyonoides, is a reservoir host of Leishmaniasis, which has spread from Russia into southern Europe where the disease is endemic, and thus could increase disease transmission considerably in that region. There are cases where interaction is so close that native and invasive alien species may even interbreed and thus result to hybrids. The native or endemics are at a disadvantage because of introgression or movement of genes between genetically differentiated forms, resulting to loss of genetic diversity and outbreeding depression. This is the case for the Philippine warty pig, Sus philippensis, and maybe are other species of wild pigs. Interactions between native and alien species are much more complicated, as shown here by the study of Doherty et al. In 2015. They show here a conceptual model of the relationship between community and habitat-mediated interaction pathways and their effects on native fauna. Habitat-mediated pathways are processes that modify habitat structure or integrity and in turn exacerbate interactions of invasive predator, here the cat, on native fauna. Community-mediated interaction pathways are changes in the presence of abundance of a top predator or its prey species that can lead to increased population densities or altered behavior of invasive predators. Shown here are factors interacting with invasive predators, such as land clearing, grazing, fire, top predator decline, altered prey populations, and anthropogenic resource subsidies. For parasitism, read the journal article entitled Roles of Parasites in Animal Invasions by Prenter et al. 2004. And through a creative output, which may be a poster, drawing, or a short story, show or illustrate how transmission of parasites from invading to native species can occur and aid in the invasion process. So thank you for listening, and you may now proceed with your learning activity.